Welcome to the Everyone's a Critic movie review podcast. I'm your co-host, Bob Zarrell. With me, as always, is professional film critic Sean Patrick. And hopefully, technology, if it's working, we might have a special guest later on in the show. Visit us at ihatecritics.net, Everyone's a Critic podcast.com. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. The handle is CriticsPod. There you can check out our trailers, the movies we talk about, reviews, news. Like us there, follow us there, share it with your friends. Also, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Alexa, Stitcher. All your podcatchers, subscribe there, rate and review the show. We'll read your review on the air. And again, tell your friends. Help them learn how to download the podcast on their own phone. It really does help out. We want to help grow the show. And then Patreon, ihatecritics.net/Patreon is the best way to help support the podcast. If you want to get a credit on the show, there's also a PayPal link and a podcast merch.
I'm just going to open a Venmo account. You can just send me money there.
Do that too. Let's jump right into the trailers. Start with the photograph.
Lakeith Stanfield and Issa Rae, which is a pretty great duo. Two of the hottest actors working today, and getting bigger and bigger by the movie. Opening a romance on Valentine's Day. And it's good to see them stake a claim in this spot because seems like a perfect Valentine's Day movie, and really sets a really strong romantic atmosphere. Really great dramatic atmosphere as well. There's the conflict of this is really great with her kind of trying to overcome her past, her parentage, and just how much of your relationships are influenced by your own. By the way you were raised, but also kind of almost genetically in a way.
Right.
I really love that approach, and I love that as the essentially the central conflict of this movie.
Yeah, I mean, I was excited. It didn't feel like a Gary Marshall movie.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, up until it said Valentine's Day, I didn't even think of Gary Marshall. But yeah, I mean, I don't know that I'll see it or not, but it looks like, looks like they're trying in this genre. It doesn't look cheesy, I guess, is what I'm getting at. And so I think that's very cool. Then there's The Banker.
The Banker, yes. Anthony Mackie, Samuel L. Jackson, based off of a true story about a guy in the 1950s, a black man in the 1950s, who essentially tries to leverage off of a guy who has a lot of money to purchase a bank. And they use a white character who... they try to use him as a front, essentially, to purchase banks so that they can start giving loans to black people in disadvantaged neighborhoods. And clever idea, and I'm glad this is a story that's being told. I wish I'd heard about this story before. It's really exciting, and I think it's an interesting story. Whether or not they can carry it off, it's weird that this trailer has just arrived and the movie's already coming out, I think, next month.
Yeah, early December.
It's weird that they've waited this long to drop a trailer for it. That always makes me a little bit suspicious. Like, is this even getting a theatrical release? Like,
right. It looks, if it's good, like it's the type of movie that'll piss you off. Like, really hardcore piss you off. And for that alone, I'm excited about it. But you're right. There is that, there is a hesitance to wonder how good it really is going to be.
Yeah.
But from the trailer, I think it looks good. So... if nothing else, it's got that going for it.
Yeah, it's got a subversive quality that I like. George Nolfi is not a director that has a great track record. The Adjustment Bureau and the other movie I can't remember off the top of my head was not a big hit.
Like Birth something? Or?
Oh, yeah, the Birth of the Dragon. That was a really not a great movie, the Bruce Lee film. As a director, he doesn't give me a lot of hope for this. But I mean, Anthony Mackie and Samuel L. Jackson are a good combination.
Yeah, got the Avengers back together for a non-Marvel movie. Let's give this technology thing a shot and see how it works out, because we're going to talk about the Terminator: Dark Fate.
It doesn't look good at this point.
Not answering.
No, he says he's having a problem.
Oh, that's interesting. Basically, we were going to have Josh Adams on.
Says something went wrong. Whether that means we can't contact him or not, I don't know.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm going to walk over to my office area real quick because I do have a phone number I could attempt to call.
Okay.
We'll see how that works. Hold on 1 second. Keep the audience entertained.
Two guys walk into a bar. No, I don't know jokes. I don't retain information that well that isn't related to a movie. For some reason, I've never been great at telling jokes. I'm more of a spontaneous, the joke occurs to me in the moment type of person. So I've never really had that particular ability. So I got nothing. Working on 2 other podcasts that have not debuted yet. And that may be a thing in the future, but not yet. Hey, he's back.
Thanks. I don't have to cut anything out. It's awesome. I will attempt to call his phone, and we'll see how much that sounds like shit.
All right, that sounds like fun. Why not?
All right, his number is 1-309.
Everybody call Josh.
I wonder if you can tell what numbers I'm dialing based on the way the tone goes.
It sounded like a very cool like an organ.
Yeah.
Josh, answer the phone.
Hello.
Hey, how does this sound? I figured I just called your phone directly instead of Skype.
Oh, well, this seems to be working fine. How are you?
Hey, sounds great to me.
I'm pretty good. How are you doing?
Oh, good. Well, in that case, go right ahead. Fuck Skype.
Is that the only thing we're going to fuck today? Because there's also this movie Terminator. Is that any good?
I wouldn't fuck I wouldn't fuck Terminator with your dick.
This has gotten off to a strange start.
Strange or just regular when we're all together?
Yeah, it's just Monday. So, Sean, we haven't talked about it yet, Josh, but go ahead. Terminator.
Terminator Dark Fate is the continuation, essentially skipping much of the Terminator franchise between... It's like Terminator 2 to this, essentially, is where the story is going. We begin with Linda Hamilton, Sarah Connor, somewhere in somewhere in South America or somewhere, and something happens that changes everything once again, and we're off into a new story. We skip ahead to today. Mackenzie Davis arrives from the future to protect a girl named Danny, played by Natalie Reyes. She's going to essentially be the new John Connor, and she's tracked by a baddie played by Gabriel Luna, who is a new style of Terminator that is both the gooey Terminator and the robot Terminator, and he can separate from his robot and gooey side and become... I don't know what they call it, the metallic goo. Anyway, this movie stinks. It's really... And I don't blame necessarily the director, Miller. He's not a bad director. This is a competently made action movie. The story is what stinks. The script is what stinks. And I think I posted a story that's on our the Facebook page about how Tim Miller's talking about having been forced to use the phrase "I'll be back." He was like, the mandate from the studio was you have to work "I'll be back" into this thing, because that's what this is truly about. This is about, and I said it in my review, this is about composting our nostalgia and serving it back to us. That's what this is about. And it's just that level of gross and disgusting and just that icky marketing ooze that's all over this movie is really just puts me off entirely. And I even the performance by Mackenzie Davis, which is quite good, because she's an incredible actress. She was Tully in Tully. Really tremendous actress. And it's just a shame that she's in this movie, because this is not a movie. This is just your nostalgia warmed over in a microwave and served back to you. And if that's okay with some people, then fine. You have an extremely low standard. I don't have that low standard. I need to be further impressed, and I was not further impressed by this.
Yeah, at least Star Wars put your nostalgia on a nice grill and smoked it or something. Anyway,
it's good sear on it. It tasted good.
They let it marinate overnight. Josh, what do you think?
From marinate for multiple years. I mean, Bob, did you end up getting a chance to see this?
I did not.
Okay, well, you know, there are times where you regret not being able to see something because you're so busy. There are times where life takes over, or you pick one movie over the other. This is one of those times that you've been spared. You know, it's like Thanos' snap. It didn't make you turn to dust. Terminator: Dark Fate is god awful. I have so many problems with the movie, but I'm going to start out by referring to, Sean, things that you've said before regarding the cohesiveness of a series of films. And I may be wrong when I say something like film language to describe my distaste for this, but the first two had a particular language about them, even though they were different films with massively different budgets and expectations were wildly different. They were both successful in their own way and cohesive as a dual film because of that language, because of how it existed in that universe without having too much separation. This, despite the characters involved and the nostalgia involved, is so unbelievably different to watch than those first two films. It is shot differently. The action scenes, whilst fantastic, display a type of action that is far more modern and alien to this franchise than ever before. I'd like to point out in Terminators 1 and 2, and even Rise of the Machines to a certain extent, the violence in those films is sudden and organic, and there's a particular gravity to everything that makes it seem a bit more realistic and existing in our modern world, and therefore it's a bit more effective and even gory at times because it's grounded. In this one, it's just a series of choreographed moves between one machine and another proto-machine and then another machine. And it's a mess, even if it's competently directed for the modern audience. That's a major problem for me. Like I said, the way that it's shot as well. The first film had a particular low-budget style to it. It seemed of its era, but there's something that we feel a kinship to because we like that kind of dirty Los Angeles 1984 film. We're okay with that. The second film had this wash of almost silver or chrome to the entire film stock. You can see it in every shot. And this one is just, despite its locations, Guatemala, Mexico, California maybe. No, I don't think they're in California, but Texas. It's just dull. There's nothing that jumps off of the screen and says, this is Terminator, and this is an important film to look at. The first two films had moments where we were kind of invested in what this story was trying to do and tell us about nuclear war and AI and the future. And even in its B-movie kind of way was successful at doing that. And this movie has no interest in exploring that beyond cheap little tropes about future wars and whatnot. I have one more thing to say before we go on, and that's about the performances. Mackenzie Davis does everything she can with an underwritten role, and Arnold Schwarzenegger, believe it or not, does everything he can with a role that is a bit thankless, actually. But my problems with the performances here involve Natalia Reyes and Linda Hamilton. Linda is bored, and her character is not written well either. So instead of somebody that's hardened and emotional all of the time and the only person in the world when the story begins that knows what's really happening, she's sarcastic for some reason. It just doesn't come off right, and what she says isn't funny, and the cheap "I'll be back" line just it almost ruins it from the very beginning of her performance. This is a disaster, and I kept wanting it to be wonderful. I mean, nobody wants this to be lovely more than me. And I was so angry afterwards that I couldn't even think straight for a while. It's an experience that I'll say is akin to the way that I felt after seeing Alien Resurrection, a franchise that was special to me, that had similar film language and existing in the universe, but then a film that doesn't belong. Resurrection was shot differently, it was written differently, and performed differently, and doesn't belong there. The same is for Terminator Dark Fate, and they should really be ashamed of themselves, because there's no reason that they shouldn't at least try and get this absolutely 100% right.
You know, Josh, without giving anything away, there's a pretty significant twist in this movie. What did you think of that twist? It happens right near the beginning of the film.
The twist is
That's
the
right.
beginning?
I should say, I won't say any spoilers, at least. Bob, do you think that I should say it now and you'll cut it, or should I wait until I'll end this conversation?
What do you think, Sean? I don't really give a shit because I'm not going to see it.
Well, I mean, it opens in such a way that a major character is killed, and that's why character's not in the rest of the film. The first 10 to 15 minutes of the film are promising. That opening scene, it really was gut-wrenching, not just to see somebody that we cared about as a character, but the CGI to make these people look young was astoundingly good. And also watching a child get murdered like that was very unnerving. And then there's an opening action scene in a factory that I thought was the kind of sudden violence, the kind of weightiness to those scenes that the old Terminator films had. And then after that, it's just a shit show. There isn't a single thing that I can think of other than Arnold after that and Mackenzie Davis that are worth watching. And I just want to know what the hell went wrong. And the only thing that I can arrive at is that James Cameron, despite his lack of presence on the set, he still was involved in the editing process of this film, and he's got to be out of touch to think that this is okay to release.
Yeah, I just don't see his being involved enough. I think what's missing here is his approach to it. He created this universe. He created T2, and the feel of those two films is very specific to his style. And without him, you can't ask another director, especially one that has a very unique vision like Tim Miller, to try and do what Jim Cameron does. It's a different thing. I've not been the biggest Cameron fan, but I'm a huge fan of T2. And even of the original Terminator, and those are unique to Cameron's style. And to ask another director to try and be James Cameron is not the way to go. And really, without his input, without his vision of this, I just don't think it works. And I just don't think it can work without his vision, or maybe less. Honestly, this might be a situation where a more Carpenter-like director would be better suited to creating something like this, because they could try and ape Cameron a little bit more, as opposed to Miller, who's not necessarily a visionary or an auteur, but at least a guy who has his own vision.
Yeah, I suppose you're right on that. I can't say for sure what the final say on everything was, but yes, you're right, and it would be hard to ask somebody to make something just like Jim Cameron did. But then again, I'll have to go back to Rise of the Machines again. Jonathan Mostow is not James Cameron, but he's made, like, Breakdown, for example, is a really fantastic movie, at least in my eyes. And Terminator 3 is far more of a James Cameron impression than this one, and he wasn't even involved in that film. I'm having a hard time coming up with the best way to explain how frustrating the experience was, to just know that after all of these misfires, they really just put out the same drivel, as everyone says the previous ones were.
I mean, yeah, it's a compost. I mean, it really is. It's taking your nostalgia, put it in a blender, then put it in a microwave, and served it back to you. And it's just not. It's an ugliness to the formulaic and machine-like quality of a studio just trying to recycle your nostalgia, and that really it sinks the whole thing. Like I said, I think this movie, in terms of other parts of it, are very competent. But you're playing in the Terminator universe. You're not playing with your everyday action movie, and that's really when you're trying to call this a Terminator movie, but you're not making it like a Terminator movie. It doesn't quite work. You're just using this as a marketing tool. You're not making a movie that's true to what we want. And granted, now that's not their job to make the movie we want, but it is their job to make a good movie, and I don't think they made a good movie.
I agree with that, and I'll add something to it. There is something about the first two original films that they were innovative. It was a bit of a copycat in its own right, of course, but then afterwards there were a lot of copycats that followed it. They were innovative in the world of special effects and action and bold storytelling on a B-movie level. Okay, this has nothing new to offer, nothing innovative, and in fact, they kind of robbed from their own franchise in a way. Mackenzie Davis's Grace character, she's augmented. She's human, but she's augmented. Well, isn't that exactly what Sam fucking Worthington was in Terminator Salvation? I mean, if you can't even come up with a new way to have somebody battle Terminators or be a Terminator, what was the draw to the project to begin with?
The stacking of the odds here is awful. First of all, Gabriel Luna, I got nothing against the guy. Terrible villain. Just awful. I mean, when you're comparing him to the iconic villain that Schwarzenegger creates in the first film, and then Robert Patrick, who's not the biggest star in the world, but is in that character, in that movie, absolutely incredible. You can't come at me with what Gabriel Luna is bringing, where he's got no personality, where he's got his abilities basically are whatever the plot needs, and he is such an overwhelming presence at times as you're like, you can't even buy into anybody can survive what he's doing. Then you've stacked the odds all wrong here.
Yeah, I agree. There's nothing about Gabriel Luna that makes me say, oh gosh, I'm going to remember this baddie or villain for a long time. I've already forgotten him. That's why I didn't even mention him.
Yeah, and I'll never forget Robert Patrick in that role. That was one of the most innovative, dangerous, exciting things I've seen in a movie, and it really it's part of what created my love of movies. And
it kind of affects his career. If you see Robert Patrick in another movie, you think Terminator 2 anyway. It doesn't matter what he's in.
That's right.
So that's how iconic that performance was. Yeah, it's a disappointment. I mean, I'm thinking of movies, Star Wars did it, the Rocky series did it, where you have that nostalgia, but you still make a good movie out of it. And it's just, I don't know, is it just harder? You can't blame science fiction because Star Wars does it, but I don't know. The Alien and the Terminator franchise just have a really hard time. Do you just not do it? Is that the best answer? Just leave it alone and don't do it anymore? Or what do you think?
Leave the memories alone.
Well, if it's going to suck ass.
Yeah.
I don't have the answer for that, but what I am thinking of is the IP, right? It used to be super profitable. And so whatever's left, if you do something to reinvigorate that IP, then there's money to be made, right? But they spent $185 million on this movie. That's just such it's a dumb thing to do when the last three films haven't met the quota that they expected.
Right.
Sean, you were going to say, I'm sorry.
And one thing is that this is a movie made by people who use the term IP.
Right.
Yeah, that is absolutely right.
That's funny. Anything else on Terminator?
If nothing else, Tom Holkenborg, I think his name's Junkie XL, is his normal composer name. He does try and create a a credible score that evokes memories of Brad Feigel's past scores for the Terminator franchise. And so that's there, and that's good because I think that helps tie it in a little bit more to the originals. But there's just not enough new there. If you're going to do something like this, I think you have to have a really solid idea, a MacGuffin that doesn't just rehash every single little thing. I mean, gosh, just when I thought that when Genesis, at the end of Genesis, they're like, oh, well, the internet is the villain now. It's the new Skynet or whatever. And I thought that was really stupid. This one is just reinventing the wheel. Basically, any type of technological innovation from this point on, they are saying, oh, well, it'll eventually end up in Terminators. I don't get that. I don't buy it. It just doesn't resonate with me. Then why do we even exist anyways? Why is humanity worth saving?
How bad would it be if the best movie James Cameron is involved with in the next, the previous 10 and next 10 years is Game Changers, the documentary? Wouldn't that be terrible?
I buy into that completely.
Wouldn't that be horrible? That's
because I have no hope for the Avatar movies, and this is awful. So,
yeah. I really would love it if I could sit down with him and pick his brain a little bit and see if my perception of him of an aloof, not self-aware guy is really who he is. That's the impression that I've gotten for such a long time now. And with this going by the wayside and with Avatar getting constantly pushed back and no one cares anymore, but he's still going to shove it in our faces. I wish that wasn't the case because he was a hero of mine when I was a teenager. He was making all of the cool shit. And then he even managed to make like a romance watchable, Mm-hmm. It's just all downhill. It's like, gosh, a hero's swan song, It's like Joe Namath playing for the Rams or something.
Yeah, it's that Batman line. You either die a hero or live long enough to become the villain. Jesus. That's Jim Cameron now.
You're right. James Cameron is now the villain to me.
That's funny. Well, thank you so much for coming on, and thank you for Josh came to I had a birthday party over the weekend, and Sean, you were 100% right. The parking was stressful. I couldn't go out there because, but it worked its way out.
Just the idea of it gave me anxiety, so.
It did as me as well, but Josh had the best costume of everybody that came, so I do want to give him acknowledgement.
All right, you got to tell me.
He was a super fan from Saturday Night Live, Robert Smigels. He shaved his beard. And one I want to know, is the beard back yet? Because it's been 2 days, and you probably grow a beard really fast. But it was an amazing costume. When he walked in, everybody in the room was just like, "Holy shit!" And then when he walked out of the room,
well, I think.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Bob.
Well, every time you walked, when you first came down to the basement in the character, when you went back upstairs, everybody was like, "Wow, that's an amazing costume. You really knocked it out of the park."
Well, the one thing that I have to say about this is that you can't always pull off the costume that you want because your body type doesn't always match what you'd really like to do. But if it wasn't going to be Fat Thor this year, it was definitely going to be another costume that fit my girth. And hey, George Wendt as Bill Swirsky, I'm pretty much, I'm there. So it worked for me. All I had to do was look in my closet and grab a razor. So thank you for the compliment, but I can't take too much credit. My wife told me, that I could go as that because we were watching SNL clips, and it's good to be recognized because normally Halloween is a shit show for me.
Well,
so sexy George Wendt, then that's what the costume.
Yeah, he knocked it out of the park. But to his point with body types,
George Wendt indicates sexy. I'm just saying.
To his point with body types, I put on an Austin 316 shirt and jean shorts, and people go, "Are you a wrestling fan?" And I was like, "Come on."
Well,
Apparently, I couldn't pull that off.
If it helps, Bob, because I've seen a lot of wrestling action figures lately, I knew exactly what you were going for. And at least I know that much.
I haven't worn a Halloween costume but once, maybe in the last 30 years. And it was it was a reference to Scrubs. I was dressed in doctor's scrubs, and I had vampire teeth in, so I was Dr. Acula.
No, that's fine.
Yes.
And I do want to give credit.
That's another excellent joke for Mitch Hedberg. If anybody understands that comic, he's talking about, don't go see Dr. Acula. He will not give you medicine. He will try and bite you.
And also, Michael, who is also on the podcast, him and his wife did characters from Goonies, which was pretty
nice,
amazing. To the point where people didn't realize they were dressing up at all. But if you knew it, you got it. It was pretty great. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Well, guys,
Josh.
I really appreciate you having me on now instead of because my wife liked it for some reason. I don't know why we're together. And so after I get off of this phone call, I'm going to have to explain to her that I've now talked the film to death, and I no longer have to argue with her about it. So thank you. You've really helped me here.
You saved his marriage.
Yeah. I'll let you know how it goes tomorrow. Yay or nay. All right, guys. Have a good evening and a good show.
Thanks, Josh.
All right. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
That was fun. But wanted to say so. I also didn't want to make him go another 20 minutes, but because we're going to move on to the next movie. But Edward Norton's been on a million podcasts promoting Motherless Brooklyn, and he made the comment, there are no movies out there for adults right now, so it's the perfect weekend for Motherless Brooklyn to drop. Not even referencing Terminator, but clearly, I don't know if he meant to do a jab at it or not, but it was pretty. I just enjoyed that comment, knowing that Terminator was out there, and he probably didn't know that Lighthouse was. But anyway, Motherless Brooklyn.
Motherless Brooklyn is written and directed by Edward Norton and starring Edward Norton as a character who has a unique trait. He has Tourette's syndrome, and this is problematic because he's also a private detective. So he works for Bruce Willis as a private detective, and basically Bruce Willis ends up getting killed, and he ends up investigating how that happened. The homage here is definitely Chinatown. They're definitely playing off that noir thing, and I really thought that really worked. The way that they play it is not so much about femme fatales and about it's not even really about all that many murders necessarily. It's really about intrigue and about MacGuffins and about leading you in one direction and then going another, and really smartly played. It's a little overlong, but it holds up over that time frame because Edward Norton delivers probably the best performance he's delivered in a good long while. It's been a while since we've seen this kind of Edward Norton, and while the Tourette stuff does get a little bit showy at times, like you can definitely see he as an actor he's enjoying having this little go-to thing. He also makes it part of the plot. He also uses it very effectively, and so I didn't mind it. I thought for a while I was a little concerned, like I'm going to get tired of this as a bit. Like there are often times an actor will adopt something to do as a bit of business so that they've got something to play with as an actor.
Right.
And I thought that was going to be what this is, and it turns out not to be that. Edward Norton is very serious about portraying the Tourette syndrome in a way that feels realistic, that feels not necessarily, it's not offensive, I guess, unless maybe you have Tourette syndrome and you found it offensive. I'm not going to speak for you, but I didn't find him just overplaying it. I thought he used it very well. I'm also impressed with Gugu Mbatha-Raw, who plays his love interest, and the chemistry between the two of them is really solid. They really create a very realistic relationship, and I really love their interaction together. Alec Baldwin is the big heavy here, but again, he's not a guy who's a violent guy. He's just a guy who has a lot of money and a lot of power, and he's really very good at using it, and he's really effective in a way that doesn't require him to be a mobster.
Right.
I really like the aspect that it's the politicians here who are the big bad guys as opposed to a group of guys who are just going around killing people. So that aspect is clever. So really, a lot of this is very clever. Is it a great movie? I mean, I don't necessarily love it, but it's not going to be one of my favorites of the year. But in terms of being a solid noir detective story, I thought it was really effective.
I really want to see it. I mean, I've been listening to all the shows he's popped on, Maron, Rogan, Hardwick, and he definitely it's definitely a passion project. He truly believes in this movie. That said, when you're director, writer, actor, like things like you've mentioned, being overlong and maybe doing a little too showy, and being the director not knowing what to cut and whatnot.
Right.
I can see that being real, but it seemed. I mean, he really seemed to believe in this movie, as you should, and that passion that he has for this really makes me want to get out there and see it as soon as I can. He's been saying Alec Baldwin's the best he's been in a long time, and that character is based on a real person from back in the 30s. It just, I don't know. It looks like a fun movie, or fun enough movie with, I don't know, just whenever someone has a passion behind something, you kind of want to give it the credit and the money it deserves. It's funny because on Hardwick's show, he was talking about how Fight Club, when it came out, it was booed and initially wasn't getting good reaction, and eventually, it took a while, but it became a classic. While they were talking, and they were talking about how Citizen Kane wasn't right away; it was just kind of pushed out to the side. And then after they got done talking about that, he goes, "But I don't want to wait 20 years for Motherless Brooklyn, so get out to the theater. There's no adult movies out there, so go see this one." Which is a total jab at Terminator, and I love it.
Typically prickly Edward Norton.
Yeah. Whether he wanted to be, whether he meant to be or not.
This movie didn't do great, though.
No.
It finished at 9th in the box office, just over $3 million, and was playing to a lot of empty seats.
Yeah. And, I just think it's funny. Bruce Willis dies right away, and I can just totally see him, the pitch. Oh, that's all I got to do? Okay, cool.
He's quite effective in those few moments, so I did like that.
All right, let's move on to a movie I've been dying to talk about since I saw it, The Lighthouse.
The Lighthouse. What is this movie? This is Robert Eggers, the director of The Witch, directing a movie starring Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe as lighthouse keepers. Dafoe's been at this for a long time. Pattinson's character is new at this. And the dynamic between the two of them is they're going to be locked away on this island together for 30 days, supposedly. And they're going to go completely insane during that time, ratcheting up the insanity throughout. And it's really, really remarkable. What an amazing movie. I don't even know what I think this is about, but I don't really care because I was just, every kind of twist or turn just kind of had my brain boiling trying to figure out what the hell is happening right now. And it reminded me a lot of movies that I really enjoy, like Night of the Virgin is a movie that while it has kind of a point, it also is all about escalating insanity. And similarly, Ari Aster has a little bit more story to tell, but it's also, again, there's a ratcheting up of the intensity and the excitement throughout. And that's what this movie has. It begins very soft, and then it just grows in craziness throughout to a degree that you'll never predict what is going to happen. I could tell you how this movie ends, and you'll still be surprised throughout this entire movie.
Yeah, everybody I was I wanted to talk about it so bad. Everybody I was talking to about didn't want any. They wanted to know nothing about it. I'm like, it doesn't matter what I'm telling you. And when I finished it, it's like I remember when Enemy came out, and we were trying to figure it out. And I believe we did. This movie doesn't need to be figured out because it does not matter how you interpret this movie. It works. Like, I'm not kidding. If you wanted to make this Jesus versus Batman, watch it again and think that the whole time. It works. It really does.
I criticized Joker for being a big all things to all people. I don't think this is all things to all people. Now, granted, I don't think there is necessarily one specific point, but I don't think this is about reflecting you back at you and your perspective. I think this is a much more daring and exciting film than that.
Well, I don't one, I don't think that's a fair. Reflecting this is daring. He's saying that's not daring is just wrong. But this isn't about you. It's about the way you interpret whatever, however you want to interpret. Whether one of them's crazy and one of them's not. Whether they're both crazy. Whether he saw something in the light or he didn't. It doesn't really matter because it works. Every scenario makes sense. And on top of that, if it played in 1930, it would have worked. Like, you can't take an Avenger movie back to 1930 and without blowing everybody's heads up. You could take this movie back to 1930 and it would make sense in that time period.
Aside from the Hays Code violations, but yeah.
But I mean, because they literally went and shot to that style, and if it works today, it's not boring. It's actually a lot of fun.
It's very funny. It's a very funny movie.
Yeah, I mean, whether what you're seeing you believe, whether it's a fantasy, whether it's it really, every different version of the scenarios works, and I think that's intentional, and in a lot of ways, I think that's really hard to pull off.
But it's also one of the things that gives this movie a lot more purpose is that it is an homage to so many pieces of classic literature. I mean, you could go back to Greek mythology, or you could go to Edgar Allan Poe. That type of drama. You could go into Lovecraft, a very obvious influence. So this is definitely the sum of a lot of different influences, and I think that may be part of the point, is just to take those influences and bring them into one movie, and then add in Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe, who are absolutely incredible. I mean, this is Pattinson in that period of his career where he's like, okay, I did the Twilight thing, I need to completely reject that now, which is where everybody, Heath Ledger did it, Johnny Depp did it, where you get to that point where I can't do that Twilight thing again. I need to reject everything mainstream and do the least mainstream things possible. So he stars in Lost City of Z, playing a character you barely recognize. He does Good Days, and again, it's another one where you're like, that's Robert Pattinson? And here, behind a big bushy mustache and constantly masturbating, this is not the Twilight guy anymore.
No, and you're leaving out the Cronenberg period of his career.
Yeah, there's that too.
The movies that no one went and saw, but which is why you probably left him out. But yeah, he's been rejecting it for a while before he becomes Batman again and starts all over again with all that crap. Oddly enough, Kristen Stewart's doing it as well, coming back with Charlie's Angels. But I don't know. It's just a lot of fun. I don't know, like, because there's nothing to really figure out, it may prevent it from, having that impact that Enemy had. And again, you're still A-list level of good. But it'll probably be on the lower part of the A-list for me or whatever. I don't even know why I'm saying A-list, but whatever it is of great movies, it'll be on the lower end of that, but it was still a ton of fun. And I cannot recommend it enough. Everybody should go see it right now because it's an easy watch and it's fun.
It's exciting. It's weird. It is jaw-dropping at times when you take in the visual aspect of it. I mean, Robert Eggers is a master at creating stunning visuals. He did it in The Witch, and he does it here in remarkable fashion. I mean, to the point where he's so amazing at this type of visionary, singular auteurist vision that the part that really stuck with me was the part that's in the trailer. Why'd you spill your beads? I just hear that in my nightmares now because, wow.
And yeah, there's like even some of there's some really almost borderline terrifying shots, like the mermaid stuff. That was just like
right.
And I don't know. It just was. I don't know. It just
that final image is a stunner.
Yeah, and I'm saying literally, but I mean it. Literally every shot of the movie could be a picture you'd put on your wall. That's how beautiful it looks.
The black and white photography, it looks like a movie that was made in the 1930s and early 1940s.
And every time they go into the lighthouse, the way he shoots it is so overwhelming. It's not even fun. I mean, it's like you understand why he's drawn to, but at the same time, you don't want to be in there. It is a great movie that everybody should go and see right away.
So what did you see in the light?
Well, there was nothing there. He's crazy, but you know, there was a bunch of kids in the theater. So at one point, not kids, but like 20 somethings, and at one point, Willem Dafoe drops Robert Pattinson while he's painting the White House, and the kid just yelled, "All right, movie over, time to go home." And I was just like, "Shut the fuck up."
Hell.
But, I mean, no, my brother was that type of person. His friends, when they'd go to movies, you know, they think they're these, you know, cinephiles at 22.
Yeah.
And they're all like, "What was in the light? What did he see?" And I'm like, "It's crazy." What do you think he saw? But I really did sit there like halfway, like not halfway, about 3/4 of the way through, especially when they started fighting at the end. The whole Batman Jesus thing popped in my head, and I went backwards, and it really could have been like Jesus really had that influence over people, and Batman's broken, Bruce Wayne. So if you wanted to watch it from that perspective, it would still work.
Overall, I mean, what better institution is there at gaslighting people than religion?
Right.
Which is Willem Dafoe. I loved Willem Dafoe in this movie. He's so amazing. Why did you attack me with an axe? You're the one holding the axe. What are you talking about? Why did you attack me? No, you attacked. What he said, but we just saw. It was amazing.
And what's so amazing about his performance is it could either be Pattinson so crazy he's imagining it, or he could be just a total asshole and acting like that.
Yeah.
And it works both ways. It's shot so perfectly that both ways could be, however you want it to be true is true. And it's to the point where he's almost talking like a Saturday Night Live pirate or something like that. Like he's that over the top.
Incredible, yeah.
But he plays it so real. He really brings it out when he's yelling at him.
Yeah.
To the point where you almost want to laugh, but the scenes are so intense. But it's just, I don't know how they walked the line they walked here and pulled everything off the way they did, other than the fact that Robert Eggers is a fantastic director, and him, Ari Aster, Edward Schultz, they're becoming this new club of directors that I can't wait to see what they all do next.
This movie is so good that I laughed at more than one fart joke, and then actually got nervous during a scene where they started arguing about farts, because like it gets seriously intense, which you understand in this enclosed space that they're in. Their beds are literally 3 feet apart. And you've got two people. The chamber pots are right beneath each of their beds. It's got to be the most disgusting place on the planet. On top of this guy just gassing constantly.
You can feel the uncomfort when you're watching. You
feel the atmosphere. You feel like you're in that room. There's a thing now in Los Angeles. We don't have it here, but they have in Los Angeles where you could actually do a 4D movie, where you could actually experience they'll spray water in your face, and you can actually smell what they smell. I do not want this in 4D, because I mean that would be overwhelming. That would be disturbing.
Yeah, and part of me thinks that sounds kind of dumb too, the 4D. Like I've heard people that have gone and done it, and it seems kind of lame.
Yeah.
But yeah, that in this movie, they'd be like dumping buckets of water on your head and stuff like that. It would not be a fun movie to watch in 4D. But it'd be effective.
But how effective is this movie? You feel like you did watch it in 4D.
Yeah, that is true. In fact, 4D would probably ruin the effect a little bit. It really is a testament to Robert Eggers, and it's, now that Netflix has TV shows and you don't have to watch them over the course of like 10 weeks, you can watch them in like a weekend, and then you got to wait a year for it to come out again. It's kind of like that, where it's like, I can't wait to see what he does next, but I literally just finished his last movie, so it's going to be a while.
He's incredible. A24 is incredible for what they continue to put out, and this is another triumph. This will be kind of that second tier behind the top movies, Midsummer and Us, and like the second 5 maybe in the top 10.
Yeah, it'll be right around in the top 10 for me for sure. Hopefully it stays in there.
Depending, I mean, this movie's. I guess this year's going to have to get a lot better for that to be true, though, because this has not been a great year. But A24 has done so much good stuff that this might be only the fourth or fifth best A24 movie.
Right. And I mean, that's the thing. The A24 could own like 5 of the top 7 slots.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see what Edward Schultz movies. That looks...
Waves, yeah. That looks incredible.
Yeah, maybe the one that could give Midsummer a run for its money. Speaking of, finally ran into someone who didn't like it. Fuckers.
This was at your party?
Yeah. He was like, so they didn't like it. He read a bunch of reviews that were bad, and then before he saw it, and then also
confirmation
fell asleep.
bias.
Right, and fell asleep during it. I'm like, well, you weren't invested. And then my brother was like, it was a dark comedy. I'm like, it's not a dark comedy. It's funny, but sometimes you're laughing not because it's funny, because you don't know what else to do.
Right.
That sex scene isn't funny. You just don't know how to react to that sex scene.
Exactly. It's that nervous, uncomfortable, holy shit, what is happening kind of laughter.
Right.
Yeah, the Night of the Virgin has a lot of that.
I still need to see that one.
You really do need to see that.
We'll have to make it a classic sometime. Even though it just came out. Speaking of...
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the main event for the linear, legitimate, and universally recognized Undisputed Classic.
The Long Goodbye.
Yes, we chose this because Terminator came out this week, and
yeah,
Arnold Schwarzenegger's in this.
Yes, he is.
Yeah. We actually picked it because it's a detective movie, and it's kind of, Motherless Brooklyn's a detective movie. And then I'm watching it and goes, oh, it's Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's perfect. This is Robert Altman, 1973, the movie that he, I think this is maybe right after MASH or McCabe and Mrs. Miller, right in that range. I think it was after McCabe and Mrs. Miller, because I think Elliot Gould turned down that movie and then took this one. But the Long Goodbye stars Elliot Gould as Philip Marlowe, the classic character, transposed into the 1970s as opposed to the 30s or 40s. He's a detective in Los Angeles who begins investigating the disappearance and what he believes to be the murder of his friend, who's played by Jim Bouton, of all people, the writer of Ball 4, the former Cincinnati Reds pitcher. Who's actually a pretty compelling actor in this movie. I was kind of surprised. He seemed like a guy that I'd seen in other movies before, even though he's never been in anything else. He was very good. But he begins to investigate that. He comes into contact with a number of different people who are searching for money. The wife of an artist who he becomes kind of friends with in a weird way. Plays a big role in that. This is Robert Altman. He's not necessarily interested in your typical detective story, even though this is probably the most narrative-driven movie that I think he's done. He's definitely got more of a story than he usually has, and he's not necessarily as distracted as Robert Altman often is with... I wonder what's over here. But I do love his little asides. There are a number of them throughout this movie, and I think my favorite one has to be the character of Wade, the author, is just a guy who just invites you for various different asides, just monologuing about what he's drinking or what he did drink or what he enjoys drinking. I love that character. I loved a lot of these characters. Yeah, this is a rare movie where there's a group of female characters in this who live across the way in a different apartment from Philip Marlowe. And you would think that they're just there for eye candy, but they're actually just really colorful, and they just add to the color of the time. This is 1970s. They're hippie girls. They're constantly topless, but it's the most natural kind of thing. It's never like this exploitative, lingering camera.
They're just always in the background.
They're just always just sort of there, and even Marlowe's just kind of gotten used to it. It's just part of what his life is.
Yeah, the camera never goes over there. You're always kind of watching them. And maybe I can't really remember, but it seems like you're almost seeing them from his apartment the entire time.
Yeah, but it's just this weird little colorful thing that just kind of exists in this universe and kind of fills out this very large universe that surrounds this movie. And that's part of what I love about Altman, is that he cares about creating this very specific universe in which this movie exists and where these characters exist. Elliot Gould's performance is incredible. He never stops talking. He's just narrating the whole thing. Whether it's he's gonna go buy cat food,
but he's like narrating it without the voiceover.
Yeah,
like he's literally narrating it while he's walking.
He's having a conversation with himself, basically.
And if it was like any other movie or any other director, you'd be like, well, people don't say that. But for whatever reason, between Elliot Gould and Robert Altman, they make it work. I don't know what it is.
He's just kind of muttering to himself.
Right.
Like, he's just like, this is his inner monologue, but he can't keep it in his head. He's just got to say it out loud so it makes sense to him.
Yeah.
So which kind of treats it more like a character trait than an invention to just bring the audience in, which I really appreciated. Everything about Gould's performance, the way he refuses to change his suit or he doesn't like to take off his tie if he doesn't have to. He keeps that on the entire time, no matter what he's doing. I really love that very specific character traits that he chooses.
Yeah, no, the fact that the narrative's more straightforward makes it easier to get through and stay with. It's an easy watch. It is weird, if it were anybody else, there's things you would probably pick apart and be like, well, why did they do that? But because Altman doesn't care, it doesn't really matter. And you just kind of accept what it is. And the story, it's kind of convenient. It all works itself out. But for whatever reason, it's a fun, entertaining watch, and that's really all you can ask for out of a movie.
That's the thing, is once you know that this is an Altman movie, you kind of have to go, okay, well, this is going to meander in places, it's just going to kind of wander off on its own direction from time to time, and you just have to hope that maybe it'll come back around to what it's doing.
And it's unlike the other ones, and maybe it's just because, one, it's the most narrative based, and two, I've had a little bit of practice over the last couple, or at least with Gosford Park not that long ago. I didn't feel like I had to warn myself. It just seemed to naturally happen, and it worked. It was easy. But yeah, it was I popped it in pretty late at night. I think it was like at 9, 10 o'clock at night when I watched it, and it got through it no problem. And it was, I definitely recommend going to watch it. It's, I don't know that I'll remember it like it will like Taxi Driver or Chinatown or something like that, but if nothing else, it was a lot of fun to watch and a really good movie.
Yeah, and it's an Altman detective movie, so it's kind of special in its own way, just because it's him tackling a genre which he doesn't necessarily do. Yeah,
and Elliot, growing up with the Elliot Gould, I've always is a different guy.
Yeah,
altogether, especially in the Ocean's movies. But it's cool to see him as a young man, and then Arnold Schwarzenegger getting naked. Not saying anything, just taking his clothes off was a fun scene as well.
I mean, Elliot Gould, he's like the dad on Friends, and he's
right.
the Ocean's guy. And here he's kind of oddly handsome. He's charming, and it's not like, okay, I can see him now as the guy who played Hawkeye and MASH. Which have you ever seen?
No, I've never seen MASH.
Yeah, it's the similar. That's where Alan Alda got his influences from this character. And granted, Alda takes it in a different direction that's much more broad, but this is the similar type of style of performance. And Elliot Gould was once really, really cool.
So where do you rank it? I mean, is it because it's such a narrative, the narrative is so somewhat normal? Is it lesser for you, or where would you put it?
It's a good question. I think I know I like Dr. T and the Women more. But it's definitely on the higher end, I think. Nashville is obviously the one I hold up highest, higher than anything.
What Gosford Park to this?
This one in Gosford Park kind of rank in the similar fashion because they do have a similar idea, and there's a similar mystery idea. That one's got a lot more characters and a lot more distractions.
Right.
This one. I think I prefer this one just because it's a little breezier.
Yeah, I think I'm with you too. And then just the whole, I'll call it noir, but it's like Altman noir. I prefer that to the with the Gosford Park genre it's in. I mean, it's still figured out kind of who done it, but Altman the way I don't know. I'm glad I enjoyed it. It was a lot of.
We'll wait a couple months and we'll bring MASH, and then another couple months and we'll bring McCabe and Mrs. Miller and really just wrap up the Altman thing.
Yeah, it's good to finally get one. 1989, nothing really of note. We'll kind of run through these. Dad, Ted Danson.
Oh, yeah, Jack Lemmon.
Jack Lemmon. I don't know anybody else in it, but
Yeah, I don't really remember much about it.
I remember the cover of the movie.
Yeah, Jack Lemmon's weird haircut.
Well, that was why I couldn't think of Jack Lemmon, but now that you say it, the face is now clearing in my mind where now I can really see the cover. Immediate Family. I don't know anything about that one, but it made a little money. Shocker, the Wes Craven movie. I remember that cover. I never watched it. Phantom of the Opera. Remember that cover because Freddy Krueger under the Phantom of the Opera mask. And then Second Sight.
Oh, wow. Bronson Pinchot and John Larroquette. Yeah.
The TV guys making a movie.
Bizarre movie, but somehow memorable.
Really?
I mean, I still remember it's Bronson.
Yeah, you remember
Pinchot
who's in
and
it, but
it's a detective movie, and he's got psychic abilities.
I mean, in theory, Dad and Shocker have memorable covers because I remember those. But kind of a throwaway couple weeks. This is 2 weeks worth of movies. I also left off anything that made less than $1 million the last 2 weeks because it was a long list. And I know neither one of us had a shot to watch any of these.
No.
Next week, we will have Dr. Sleep midway. I think Sean's already seen Dr. Sleep. Better Days, The Last Christmas, and Playing with Fire. Provided we see them all. That's what's coming out at least. Maybe something else.
I'm wondering about, I wonder when they're going to expand Parasite further.
Are they going to ever bring Jojo Rabbit?
I don't know.
Because that one seems to be getting closer and closer to wide release, but maybe they won't. So those will at least be out. Whether we get to all of them or not, we'll see. The classic will be The Shining, though, so we'll definitely talk Dr. Sleep. 1989, Henry V, My Left Foot, the movie where you had to carry fucking Daniel Day-Lewis around. Staying Together, Best of the Best.
Best of the Best. What do you watch? Do you watch Best of the Best or do you watch My Left Foot? Which one?
Watch them double feature. Like we did
My
in
Left
89.
Foot is like one of those, like when I look back on it, like that is like the homework movie that comes to mind. Like that one and like The English Patient are like the two that really come to mind when I think of homework.
Yeah, I remember that one because like I've never seen Last of the Mohicans. But I knew that Daniel Day-Lewis was this great actor, and they kept referencing My Left Foot. And this is before he really started winning Oscars. And I went back and I watched that one, and I liked it. And then when you start to hear and I don't even know if it's true. I may just be making it up. But the rumor is they made him carry him around set and stuff because he couldn't walk and shit. And he was that into the character. I bought into it, and I don't like him anymore.
Because it makes him kind of a dick.
If that even happened,
Right.
I wasn't there. I'm pretty dickish of me to even pretend it's real. I'm okay with Mel Gibson because he's changed, but Daniel Day-Lewis, he might have done this.
If you were the accountant on set on a movie, and the lead actor was telling you to refer to him as his character name, what would you do?
Depends on who it is. I mean, in the end, is that not what we would all do? It's one thing to be like, if I didn't like him, I'd be mad about it. I'll probably lower on the totem pole, so I'll just do my job to get paid. Yeah. But if it's someone I like, I'd be happy about it. If it was someone I didn't like, I'd be mad about it. I'll be honest, Mr. President. But that is our show. I want to thank our Patreon supporters for helping support the podcast. At our key grip level, we have Charlie Messing and the Hall of Famer Jason Bryant. The character actor levels, we have Josh and Beth Paul, Christina Cato and Cousin Jeff, and I believe Zach Covemaker. At the special effects level, we have Corey Finner and Sarah Morrell. If you want to be a Patreon supporter, head over to ihatecritics.net/Patreon to get yourself a credit on the show. There's also a PayPal link in our podcast merch tab where you can get a Batman vs. Jesus shirt until they take it away from us. I think Disney owns both Batman and Jesus. No, they don't either one, do they? Not yet, at least.
Not yet.
Yeah, that's the show. Do you have time for Flick Shard? I need to go home.
Oh, absolutely. I'm all good.
Batman Begins, 101 Dalmatians, 2000.
Batman? You said Batman?
Begins.
Yeah, okay, I'll take Batman.
good because I clicked it already. Little Shop of Horrors, 1986, 13 going on 30.
13 going on 30.
Sadly, I'm with you on that one. Gandhi, Raising Arizona.
Raising Arizona.
Yeah, some more homework versus some fun.
Right.
Lion King, 94. Shrek the Third, 07.
Lion King.
Yeah.
I did have to think about it, though.
If it was maybe the first Shrek or possibly the second. My Cousin Vinny, What Lies Beneath.
My Cousin Vinny. I didn't need to think about that one.
Just had to take a breath. The Incredibles, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
The Incredibles.
Yeah. Gone Baby Gone, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
The original?
Yeah.
Yeah, that one definitely. I love Gone Baby Gone, but Texas Chainsaw is a top 5 all time.
Thelma and Louise, Iron Man.
Iron Man.
Yeah. I feel bad taking... I feel like I'm supposed to like Thelma and Louise better. It's just been a while.
Yeah.
Rat Race, Spartacus.
Spartacus.
Matilda, The Hunt for Red October.
Hunt for Red October.
Interstellar, The Fly, 1986.
Interstellar.
I moved George over to the other side of the room, so hold on a second.
I'm not a huge Interstellar fan, but I at least found it entertaining enough. Whereas I don't even I'm trying to even remember what you just said the other movie is.
Cronenberg's The Fly.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, not a fan.
I'll take Cronenberg over Chris Nolan most of the time. And I win.
Damn you, George.
Not Another Teen Movie. Shaolin Soccer?
Let's skip it.
Not Another Teen Movie. Babe.
Babe. I don't know why people like Not Another Teen Movie. It baffles me.
It's funny. That's why.
Is it? Is it really? Because I
think it is.
I don't think it is. By the way, just a quick aside. At a generational moment not too long ago, and it was just one of the saddest things ever. I was interviewing this kid, and he's doing this competition where Disney and Star Wars are actually involved in sponsoring it. And I go, "Are you excited about Disney and Star Wars being part of your competition, supporting your competition?" He goes, "Yeah, it's okay, but I'm more of a Transformers fan." And my heart just dropped. Just dropped.
It's kind of funny, though. Solaris, 1972, Miss Congeniality.
Solaris.
Sure. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, 1937, Pride and Prejudice.
What year?
05.
Snow White.
I'm just going to go with you on whatever you picked on that one. Arachnophobia, Red Dragon.
Red Dragon.
Yeah. Child's Play 2, Rush Hour.
Rush Hour.
Thor, The Dark World, V for Vendetta.
V for Vendetta. I didn't really need to think about that.
I don't really like V for Vendetta that much, but I like it better than Thor. Pocahontas, There's Something About Mary.
There's Something About Mary.
Kill Bill Volume 2, The Mist.
Kill Bill.
Agreed. Ace Ventura, American Graffiti.
Oof. American Graffiti.
Did you see, I posted it, I guess I didn't post all of it. My cousin did a Midsummer Halloween costume. It is fantastic, too.
Really? Was it a bear?
No, he had, like, flowers shooting out of his eyes.
Whoa!
It was ridiculous. I put it on our Instagram. I'll have to put it on our Facebook account, but he also did Ace Ventura. He had two different parties. But, he's really, really talented in terms of, it was exactly like the Ace Ventura character, but the Midsummer stuff was fantastic. It was
His
Like-
flowers breathe.
Right. It was like on level with Your Cousin Jeff. It was that
Oh, wow.
kind of out there and like pretty perfect. God damn it. Interstellar or Starship Troopers 2.
Have you seen Starship Troopers 2? Because I haven't.
No. Oh, good. We can reset it. Thank God. I don't want to pick Interstellar.
Yes.
Interstellar or Braveheart.
Interstellar.
Braveheart is so much better. It's not even funny. Thank you, George.
I wonder where Josh would have come down with that one. That would have broke Josh.
Yes. Old Boy or Small Soldiers.
Old boy.
The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, Eyes Wide Shut.
Eyes wide shut.
Sweetie, 89.
Never heard of it.
Big Daddy, 99. The Fly, 1986.
Ugh. Oh, jeez.
You hate The Fly that much?
I don't really care for it, but yeah, The Fly.
I mean, to me, I don't think Big Daddy's a bad Sandler movie. I think it's just kind of there. It's kind of a waste of time to hate that one. I don't understand. The Holiday, Lethal Weapon.
Lethal Weapon.
Yeah, I can't get away from my nostalgia. I mean, I don't really know The Holiday anyway. Airplane, The Princess Diaries.
Airplane.
Freaky Friday with Jamie Lee Curtis or SWAT.
Ugh, boy. Neither one of those is very good. Freaky Friday.
I don't hate Freaky Friday. I don't love it, but it's
Yeah.
at least watchable. Dude, Where's My Car? The Negotiator.
The Negotiator. I have a weird soft spot for that movie. I can't even explain it because I don't think it's good, but I watch it so many times when it's on TV. I don't know why.
Alien vs. Predator, Mighty Aphrodite.
Mighty Aphrodite.
Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, Van Helsing.
And we're done.